So, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today in this very special event where we are celebrating the 500 years of Luís de Camoes. So it's part of the celebrations. It will be a whole week of celebrations, both here and in Tallinn. And we are very honored to have Professor Margarida here with us. Naturally, I have here a very extensive biography, but no. I'm just going to ask Professora, considering your background in French literature and the fact that you're Portuguese, why are you here in Finland talking about Camões and Portuguese literature?
Well, thank you so much. Before answering you, I would like to thank the bookshop, of course, for receiving us and welcoming us and promoting the Portuguese culture, because it's so important to have that return. And Camões used to say, no, he said in verses, where Portugal, where the land ends and the sea begins, and it was really our big thing in Portugal in the 15th, 16th century. It was to be able to be near the sea and to go through. And when I was preparing my classes for this week, I was speaking to myself and saying, amazing, because Finland and Portugal, we have the same problem. I mean, we are both in the end of Europe. And I think you will be able to understand Camões because of that line that join our cultures. So thank you to Rosebud, and thank you for the Portuguese ambassador that and the Instituto Camões, of course, and this marvelous team, because for inviting me and for taking care of me. And so it's Camões, it's really icebreaker for Portuguese people. And at last I would like to thank my friend Kevin, because you have a patient way of promoting Portugal and our people. So thank you so much for having a Portuguese heart. So, speaking about Camões, why? Because Shakespeare for English culture, Homer for Greek culture, of course, and for you, let me, if you don't, I should have, for you, thanks to Kevin, I think it's important to explain that for us, Camões is a bit like Carvalho. I haven't studied, I haven't read, I'm sorry, till now. And it's much more later than Lusíadas and the work of Camões, but it's just for you to understand that for us, Camões and Lusíadas have that identity, Portuguese identity. So I suggest, if you can do it,
okay,
to read because we managed to find 3 poems to bring to you, but because of the translation, we have a lot of English translation, but the good one are made by a colleague of mine of Nova, University of Nova, and it calls Zenit, and it's amazing. And I think he has really translated. So, Camões, because it's a passion for all Portuguese, because I will be back to that at the end, because this question I have the answer at the end, so I cannot tell anymore. But it's a Portuguese way of understanding literature and culture and our past, of course, our history past. And so it's always good to go abroad and speak about Portuguese literature and not French literature. It's my passion also. Okay.
Very well. In that case, before we start, let's just give a little bit of context. I also have the pleasure of teaching Portuguese studies at the University of Helsinki. I am the teacher assigned by Instituto Camões, so I can say you are very welcome in their name as well. And I also would like to introduce Nora Rungen. Did I say that right? Okay. Nora is a student of Portuguese studies at the University of Helsinki, and we made her the invitation to read the poems to complete the circle in a way, since we have diplomatic community, academic community. I think it kind of connects everything. So Nora will read the poems, and then we can talk a bit about them. But before you start, could you just say the name of the poem?
It's a sonnet, and I have chosen for the translation, the good translation, but also because it speaks about the place where he was born, and it's. I'm giving a spoiler, okay? But it's why I choose this one. No mundo, poucos. Okay. So you have the translation from Richard Zenit. You can read it. He's a writer also and a fantastic Portuguese intellectual. He has an English name. He's in English, but he's in Portugal since ever. So.
All right. Let's enjoy.
We are not able to see the... Yes, perfect.
Olá. Okay. No mundo poucos anos e cansados. Vivi cheios de vil miséria dura. Fui-me tão cedo à luz do dia escura, que não vi 5 lustros acabados. Corri terras e mares apartados, buscando a vida algum remédio ou cura, mas aquilo que, enfim, não quer ventura, não alcançam trabalhos arriscados. Criou-me Portugal, na verde e cara, pátria minha além quer. Mas ar corrupto, que neste meu terreno vaso tinha, me fez manjar de peixes em ti, bruto, mar que bates na abácia fera e avara, tão longe da ditosa pátria minha.
Thank you so much. This one, Nora didn't have the occasion, couldn't train, so thank you so much. It's perfect. But I wanted to show you it's a classic sonnet as Petrarca the Petrarca way, and it's a very nice sonnet because Camões synthesized his life. So he was born in Alacare, which nowadays we are not sure, and I'm going to speak 5 seconds about that. And he says, I had to go away, I had to travel, I had to go by sea on the discovering, and because I couldn't find at home what I needed. And for me, this is the more important part of the sonnet. So why did Camões left his country for in the discoveries, and why we are talking about him 6th century after he was born? So it is. I tried to find two pictures. They are not very good, but this one you see he's blind, and I'm going to explain. And this one is the famous painting where he saves his Lusíadas, the epic poem he wrote. So what we know nowadays, because we are since 24, we don't know if he was born in 24 or in 25. So a lot of colleagues of mine are have been reading and publishing books about Camões. So a lot of series are coming up, but they're right. We don't know because it was so desassossegado. It was so yes, that it was everywhere doing mess. That's the point. So we know that it could be was born perhaps in Lisbon, in Coimbra, in Santarém, in Alenquer, how we saw there, and he says it, so it's a nice point. Chaves, Porto, all over Portugal. And the thing is, Lisboa, Coimbra, and Porto at the time had the best universities of the country, and they have also begun. So in the south. So when we speak about Camões, what do we have in mind? He was blind of his right eye, and he was. There was the problem of the eyes. Just to tell you, he was in Ceuta, and he in combat. He was victim of a cannon, and a spark that tore in his eyeball. And he used in a few poems. He says, "My friendly fire," to explain the blindness. And the book. The epic book. Apparently, it was by a shipwreck, and it's romantic to say that he had the book in one hand and he was swimming with the other. We don't know. We don't have proofs of that. But you all of us, we know the weight of a manuscript. Imagine the big book, the big manuscript with writing tinta in ink. So I couldn't save mine, I'm sure.
I would lose my doctoral thesis for sure.
So, and just for, I just put this to explain to you that he was a naughty boy. So he was always drunk in bordels. In Lisbon, it was a problem because he was a noble. He descended from a noble family, but without money, so no heritage, you will see. And he really was a messing boy, so there was sometimes he was in prison, sometimes he was abroad, not to make trouble in Lisbon, to make it short. And in fact, this is in Jerónimos, the big church for that we have for the discovery. So
the monastery.
Yes, the monastery, and it is written, "Here lies Luís de Camoes, prince of the poets of his time." We're really not chauvinist. He lived poorly and miserably, and so he died. So we have this great poet, Portuguese poet, the Portuguese poet, and he hasn't left anything but a great obra. Work, sorry. So this is just to say Gutenberg is second 15th century, and it's just to say that it's the point where things change with the Renaissance and with humanism. So I put just a few words, anthropomorphism, because the man is in the center of the world, Leonardo da Vinci. We have manuscripts versus prints, so we get more books. In fact, Gutenberg and humanism is what we have in this room. In medieval age, library with 25, 13 manuscripts was a great library. So things get on, and copies get on, and this is very important, the national language. Du Bellay in France, Nebrija in Spain, sorry, and all over the Europe, we start a national language. We left Latin, we don't forget, but we left Latin by our side, and we start through Camões, Ronsard, etc. We start having a language with a proper cunho, seal.
Yeah, our seal.
We could see. So it's in fact in the time of Camões we had a new way of thinking in new projecting new words, new ways of thinking, and Camões is brilliant in that. And we also have the grammars. I just put, but to go on, João de Barros, Fernando de Oliveira, they need to write grammars in Portuguese, like in French, in Spanish, in English, all over Europe, to say, I am Portuguese. And it's very, very interesting. So we have now one of the most brilliant sonnets, Petrarca style also. So, como é que se diz? Dois quartetos. You tell it?
Yes.
You can tell it.
I can tell it.
Perfect.
Yes. Well, as a teacher of Portuguese literature, of course, my students have contact with Camões. Nora surely remembers those two sessions. One of the sessions is dedicated to the poetry of Camões, and the other session is dedicated to Lusíadas, which we will come to next. And we do analyze this poem. And why?
Sorry.
Not just because it's famous, but it's also about the content of the poem. As one of the greatest poets of the Portuguese language, the sonnet Amor é fogo que arde sem se ver is one of the most emblematic works. The poem is fundamental to the study of Portuguese literature because it synthesizes with great formal perfection the concepts of love in the Petrarchian tradition, exploring its duality and contradictions. Through antitheses and paradoxes, Camões describes love as a force that is once pleasurable and painful, rational and irrational. The structure of the sonnet, with the decasyllabic verses, the rigorous rhyme, demonstrates the sophistication of his poetics. So in the classical form, four verses, a quartet, 4 verses, quartet, and then tercet. Classic. But it's more than that, because the influence of this poem even goes outside of Portugal. It's cited and adapted in literature and other forms of art. Studying this sonnet allows students to understand the richness of the Portuguese language, the literary tradition of the Renaissance, and the universality of the theme of love, thus becoming an essential piece in the teaching of Portuguese literature. So this is why it's there in our program.
Yes.
But now I think we need to listen to it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Amor é fogo que arde sem se ver. É ferida que dói e não se sente. É contentamento descontente. É dor que desatina sem doer. É não querer mais que bem querer. É andar solitário entre a gente.
Sorry.
É nunca contentar-se e contente. É cuidar que ganha em se perder. É querer estar preso por vontade. É servir a quem vence, o vencedor. É ter com quem nos mata lealdade. Mas como causar pode ser o favor nos corações humanos, a amizade, se está ao contrário a si, é o mesmo amor.
Perfect. Thank you so much. This is a good sonnet to explain the character of Camões. And not only of Camões, because we know, Tiago, that the difference between Baroque and Classicism is the contraries. So you have, to give you a case, it's a fire that burns unseen, a wound that ashes. In Portuguese, it's really more, in fact, é fogo que arde sem se ver. É a ferida que dói e não se sente. So this is quite a premonition of what is the evolution of Portuguese literature. And when we speak about Camões and what this particular epic poem brings to us, we know that he has the first edition had 34 copies on 3 different continents, and it was not only in libraries but in private collections. This is amazing for that moment. I mean, for now it's nothing at all, but at that moment it was really important. And the price that it was founded for Camões, you cannot see the PowerPoint, but it was amazing because it was 85 centimes, so at our actual euro. So this is to say that at the time, and it's often the problem, the good writers are not recognized by our society. Nothing has changed. In a few years, you will say, we spoke about, I don't know, the one you was telling Kevin this morning, the Portuguese writer. I don't remember the name.
Peixoto?
No, Peixoto is beginning to be famous. But you understand my idea. And I was reading last week a few commentaries from Portuguese intellectuals about Camões, and there is Miguel Esteves Cardoso. He is really also special, and he is really. He has a big sense of humor, and he said something that I totally agree. Who cares if Camões didn't have an eye? Who cares if he was rich or poor? Who cares if the manuscript was handed on the sea? No, we have to take care of his language, of the love he had for the Portuguese language and for the Portuguese patria, for the Portuguese
homeland.
Yes, but it's like our saudade. It have emotion when you put instead of saying nostalgia, saying nostalgia, saying saudade. It's very.
We feel it.
Yes. So Camões is not only a poet of erotic love, what can we say also? But it's also love, but he's also, and above all, is a lover of Portuguese language. And that's why we are here, because it's the great ambassador with Fernando Pessoa, I think, for Portuguese culture. Fernando Pessoa, 20th century, okay? Not melting things. So, Camões uses the language to write, but also to seduce, to conquer people and ladies, of course. And we see that in one particular episode of Lusíadas in the Canto 9, which similar to Homer and Ulysses Odyssey, is Island of Love, so where all the nymphs are staying and catching the men who are in the seas, you see. So it's really, we have to imagine ourselves in the 6th century. It was really 16th century. It was really avant la lettre, how French said. So what I found in Camões is that it transforms literally a bad thing in a good thing. So if it's a heartbreak, he managed, amor focar sem se ver, to be something special. So it's so Portuguese. Portuguese and Brazilian, they have this capacity of saying, is it going to rain? Maybe. So it's that I think it's one of our big things is to be able to resolve things that at the first time don't seem so easy. And Camões do it. He brought into Portuguese that capacity of surviving, because it wasn't easy to be on the I was thinking on the planes also, on the ships, and they used to, one trip used to 6 months, 8 months, depending on the time, the tempests and the storms, all the problems they had. So the boat problems also, mechanical problems. So it's amazing how they managed to. I'm not saying it's a romance being in a boat, okay? But I mean, it has a really strong soul, and Portuguese in Camões shows that. So. To come back to Miguel Esteves Cardoso, he says that Camões is a very cultured man.
Yeah.
He knows, I'm using his own words, he knows many languages. That's proper from humanists. They used to know everything about everything. He is a man of the world. This was said by Miguel Esteves Cardoso this year, because in Portugal they are making some programs very nice about Camões. So the more important in Camões, and we are going to see with the first stanza from Os Lusíadas, is really to say that we have to read. In Portugal, of course, but we have to read a little bit of Camões, because he's so good. Miss Ambassador, I shouldn't say that, but it's so good as Homer, because I teach Homer Odyssey in classes, and Federico Lourenço is a great Greek professor in Latin, and he's translating the Bible in a different way, and he's really a good translator, and he says we have to understand Odyssey at the time of the Odyssey and Camões at the time of Camões. And Camões was really, this is where I wanted to put. So he's a humanist, a real, true humanist, as I said a few seconds ago, but we have to study not only the form for us, literary people, but the content, the content, because he has so many information that it is really important to have that, to remind you. If we have time at the end, I'll go back through a few examples that will surprise you, okay? So, Nora? Now you first.
No,
sorry.
So before reading this first stance of the Lusíadas, for context, Lusíadas is
I'm sorry, because
one of the most important works of Portuguese literature, a landmark of our national identity. It narrates the adventures of Portuguese navigators during the time of the sea exploration. The poem is a good verb, exalts, extols values like courage, perseverance, and glory, but still with a critical reflection on the challenges and sacrifices of all these achievements.
Yes.
Studying the Lusíadas for us is essential to understand the culture and history of Portugal. I read recently that for many years, the Lusíadas was the most important historical book of Portuguese history until we started investing more in that science. As the work is not only an account of the heroic deeds, but also the subtle critiques of society and power. By using rich language and a classical structure inspired by Virgil's Aeneid, by Homer's Odyssey, he manages to demonstrate the sophistication of the Portuguese language. So we analyze the Lusíadas. We learn about the information of national identity. We learn about the Renaissance, the world, the epic traditions, which makes learning about the Lusíadas fundamental reading, again, in Portuguese literature classes. And yes, I understand, I was in your shoes once. I had my teacher showing, so we're going to read this now. And so, why do I want to know about the arms and the barons? I just want to, play football and find a girlfriend. But it's a realization that comes later, especially when we choose this path to understand how rich Lusíadas is in just one stance. What we can learn from it. It's truly an eye-opening experience. So, in a way, I'm very happy to have been in Nora's seat, and now I'm in my seat, trying to change the way a bit of how I learned it, so maybe I can motivate them to see that beyond that. And again, Nora, thank you very much for accepting our invitation. Please share with us the first stance of the Lusíadas.
As armas e os barões assinalados, que da ocidental praia lusitana, por mares nunca de antes navegados, passaram ainda além da Taprobana, em perigos e guerras esforçados. Mais do que prometia a força humana, entre gente remota edificaram novo reino, que tanto sublimaram.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. And all Portuguese knows these verses by heart.
And it's one of the things I say in class. Look, you do English studies. You say, I studied English literature. The first thing that people say to you is, to be or not to be, that is the question.
Yes.
What would happen if a student of English literature would reply, what? What is this to be or not? Okay, so it's the same thing for Portuguese studies. If Nora says, I study Portuguese, as armas e os barões assinalados, and her reply is, what?
Yes.
What is that?
Yes.
Then I didn't do my job. But I think I did my job.
Yes, I suppose, yes. Nora is here. She's here. So it's really very musical. You have music in. I know it's difficult to understand because you don't know the words in Portuguese, but it's like if someone reads me or a finished poem, I will catch that. It's the rhythm, the way you read. Thank you so much. Really well the poems, and this is so intense. This is the first stance from the Lusíadas, and when we read this, we Portuguese, we feel the ships going out of Lisbon by Tejo. Don't you feel that? It's so graphic, we should say today. It's so graphic. So it's a way of getting into that time and imagine all was involved in this Portuguese discovery. So, oops, I think we have time, so I can go on. What is amazing in the content of Lusíadas is that you get so much information from the time. I used to say to my students, because I'm a medieval and Renaissance teacher in French studies, and I like studying medicine, history of medicine and food studies, because I feel that in literature you can always, for us in the 21st century it doesn't make sense. It will make sense in 10 centuries, but for us it's very important to know what literature brings to us when we want to know how people used to live, okay, in that time. So Lusíadas is a really good element to understand how was medicine at the time, what did they used to eat, what was the lifestyle of that people. Camões, we have seen, he was a Don Juan, but it's very important. And one of the amazing things we have when we think about the life that people had in the boats, in the ships during those days, is that it was tough. It was really tough. And one of the greatest problems was the health of that, os marinheiros.
Sailors.
Of the sailors, thank you so much. And of course, we know, I don't know if this is the right translation, but the scurvy, o escorbuto.
Escorbuto, sim. Scurvy.
It was a real problem on board. Why? Because, you know, scorbuto, syphilis, and so on. I'll come to syphilis later. And in fact, they were losing members, and it was really contagious. So if one got, the others were. It's like COVID. It was really, but in a very bad way. So imagine that people in the boats, for a while, for so many long time, with the food. Before the food, I want to speak about. I changed the slide, but it's okay. With the food on board. So you had the wine, of course, because wine, it was a way of the water, the sweet
fresh
water, fresh water was at till certain moment were contaminated. So they put wine and vinegar to be able to. Sorry, I'm always to be able to drink and the wine was also to treat some problems, medical problems, and etc. And they had what we call in Portuguese the vinha de alhos that we brought to India, for instance. And it was the wine and the garlic and colorau.
Red paprika.
Yeah, but that later. But well, it was a way of conserving the foods and the salted food, meat also. So, and the biscuit that I found interesting to bring to you, because this is the first dictionary in the end of the 16th century, making allusion to the biscuit, okay, because it was overdone. very tough to imagine for the teeth. It wasn't good, but it had this aspect. It was the big one, and very tough to be able to imagine. To be able to be eaten for 20 years. Amazing, like the Roquefort. Now, 20 years. It's the first time they use that detail. But it was made it was cozido, baked. Thank you. Twice for the little. They say little travel. We and then it continues, but it says it's a proper biscuit for the seas, and in Latin is bis, because it's bis is twice done. And continuing, that I haven't put everything, it says, and if it's really a very long trip, so go on baking it to be sure that it takes a long time. So, do we have time to? Are you feeling bored?
Well, maybe we can
yes.
open questions to.
So just before open,
okay.
Just saying that this will be another talk, because we bring things to the others, and the others brought things to us. So we are the result of this miscellaneous of the trading, exactly. And Jorge de Sena is a Portuguese poet from the 20th century, and a great man. I tried to translate. He said, if we know little about Camões, biographical speaking, we know everything about his poetic persona, since not many poets at any time have transformed their own experience and thoughts into such a revealing work of art as Camões' poetry is. And just to open the discussion, finally, and it's a fun fact, of course, for us, and I just thought about this when I was preparing Helsinki stuff. It's incredible, because Epopeia from Homer or Virgilio, or the classic ones, when we teach to the students, it's very difficult for them to understand, because it's not in the original language. And once I had a student who was at the seminar, and he knew how to speak about the Odyssey in Greek, so it's completely different. He read the stanzas, it's completely different, really. And so our Portuguese students, we Portuguese, we are really lucky guys, because we are reading Lusíadas in the original Portuguese language, our language, and is still so modern in the way he's thinking. So it's something that we should be proud of, all of us. And I suppose Camões is laughing at us now, at this moment, because 500 years after he was born, we're still talking about him. And ironical, as you saw, he died without any money. He was poor, but really poor. Camões he died of syphilis. Imagine why, Don Juan. And it was really in a bad shape. It was the third stage of syphilis at the time. So it was really a bad ending. And now it's so important. Now we speak about it. So it's ironical. And I wanted to say just like broken ice, to break the ice and pass
Yes.
to you.
Yes, we have a question. One moment.
Perfect. Yeah.
So how do you read the poems in the post-colonialistic world? Because it's basically admiring colonization when I read about it. Because I'm originally from Kerala, and it's specifically about Vasco da Gama's journey to Calicut and how he perceives the local people and everything. We were not uncivilized society. We were organized society. We had trade going on for the rest of the world. So how do you read these poems in this time and world when people like us exist in this world, you know?
Yes. I have an answer for that. First of all, we have to look at literature as literature. Okay, this is the first thing, and I don't know who told you, but we have to always think it's not our time; it's another time. This is very important to interpretation of the Bible, of the Quran, everything. So this is literature. Okay, this is literature in a certain time, and I was about to take, and I forgot, a picture of the Namba biombos. Yes, because you should see how Portuguese, they had made fun of us while we were in Japan. But really, the clown. So we have those Namba pieces of art in one of the most important of Portugal, museums of Portugal, the ancient art in Lisbon, and it's the masterpiece, one of the masterpieces. So the thing is not to focus on what the foreign people look at, but to see how literature can match people. And for Portuguese, we were speaking about that yesterday. For Portuguese, it was a quite different approach because we melted. I was in Angola 2 years ago, and I was in Brazil, and I was in Thailand. Unfortunately, I want to go to India, but it's amazing, and I think the others feels the same. When you go through miles and miles and miles, and you feel at home. Of course, when you have the language, when you speak Portuguese, Brazil, when I arrived to Rio, I felt, wow, I'm home. In Angola also. And it's a special country nowadays, so you feel that it's the equilibrium, the
balance. The
balance, you know, you have to have a balance. You have to understand that literature is for human thought. We cannot transform it in another things, even if we have to, of course. But it's a piece of art. When I look at Odyssey, I don't say
Odyssey.
Odyssey. In Portuguese, now I forgot the name, but it's the Ulisses.
Ulisses?
Odyssey. Now in Brazilian they use the. No matter, but you see those nymphs approaching the hero that leaves her wife at home for 10 years, and she's waiting, making and
making and unmaking
making
a quilt.
the tissue is a metaphoric thing, of course, And I could say, wow, why a woman should wait for, in a 21st century way of thinking. So please, look at literature as a piece of art of some writers that are there, are inspired by
other artists many times.
Because he's a genius. Like a doctor can be a genius, like an ambassador can be a genius. It's people that helps others. And I suppose I have a lot of them. No, but it's an art. Speaking to others. I speak as a student, as a teacher, like you, but others speak in other ways. So let's stay in that genius mode. I mean, okay? If you want, we can talk after, but you know what I mean. I hope I've been...
Yes, one more question here. It's over here.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, I'm the ambassador of Chile, and this was very enlightening. Obrigada. I just want to, well, I learned a lot of things about, I didn't know that he was blind from one eye, so that's for a start. But I wanted, maybe you can tell us a little bit about the influence of Camoes in Pessoa, because Fernando Pessoa is kind of so relevant in Latin America, particularly in Chile. You know, he's very admired. So what's the relation, if you can relate to that? And has it been that Camoes was in part forgotten because of the, the fact that Pessoa became so famous? You know, at least in Latin America, I would say that Pessoa is, we learn about Pessoa at school, but we don't learn about Camoes. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your question, because it's a very good question. First of all, when you just after Camões, it was too soon to have that décalage, time décalage. You need to understand what you have there. So Camões, at the time, as I said, was not really recognized as by the friends and the Portuguese society, yes, but not abroad. He was known. He had connections with Erasmus and others. But in fact, I don't see Camões and Pessoa in different plans. The problem is when you are, you have to choose some authors to give, writers to give to others. You have to put something in the back, because it's not. I see that with French literature. I cannot teach to to Portuguese, all the masterpiece of medieval or Renaissance literature. I have to choose Ronsard, I have to choose Rabelais, and I have to choose, when I have time, Montaigne, and they're all great. And with the I imagine you could probably explain better than me, but Pessoa had various personalities as a writer, as you know, and one of the mensagem, it's a way of honor Camões, precisely. So it's not like a cut, but how do we say today?
A sequel?
Uma reinterpretação.
Reinterpretation.
A revival of Camões. But it's easier to read mensagem than to read Camões when we are not Portuguese. It's the same with Shakespeare or other Cervantes in Don Sancho, Don Quixote.
Well, I'm sure we could continue talking for a long time, but we have to wrap up. Nora, thank you very much again for accepting our invitation. It was beautiful. Margarida, we will continue to enjoy each other's company in the next few days.
It was a pleasure.
Especially, we're going to play around with Camoes and artificial intelligence on Wednesday.
Yes, that I'm afraid of.
Don't worry,
I'll let to you.
I'll take care of it. And thank you very much to all of you who joined us for this little conversation about our great poet, Luís de Camoes.
And thank you for listening and being
and
patient.
having questions. We hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to browse Rosebud, since they are the gracious hosts of this conversation. So thank you to Rosebud.
And if you want to ask me something out of the stage,
you will be around.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, of course.
Thank you very much and have a good afternoon.